What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you back on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be going through the ultimate fitting guide for a men's performance t-shirt. I'll be pulling it from my experience as a sportswear designer working in the field over the last 5 years. And on today's episode, we'll be basically looking at a oversized fit or a relaxed fit and comparing and contrasting with an athletic tapered cut. We're going to be looking at the core measurements of each of these two types of garments, and step by step, measurement by measurement, I'll run you guys through each of these measurements and explain the differences between both, why they exist, and how they actually affect and impact the final fit. This is going to be a little bit of a techno episode, but if you've ever been interested in why certain garments fit the way they do versus other garments, this is going to be the episode for you. You're going to learn a lot, so buckle up. You guys are in for a good one. What's up, design family, and welcome to Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you here. On this channel, we discuss all things sports fashion, graphic design, manufacturing, and technology. We'll discuss key topics, answer pressing questions, and provide actionable steps on starting your own product line. If you're interested in any of the above topics, stick around. You're in for a good one. Starting off right at the beginning, I'm going to be using two garments to compare and contrast. On the right side, I have a more athletically fitted t-shirt, and on the left side, I have what would be considered as an oversized and relaxed fit. And one of the first things that you see when it comes to these garments is essentially the difference in length between them. What creates an oversized fit versus a regular fit or an athletic cut? This is what is known as the center back measurement. Center back measurement is taken pretty much from the top of the stitch on the neckline all the way down to the bottom of the center fold line. And how does this actually impact and affect the finished result? Well, your center back line is actually going to dictate where the garment finishes on your legs or your torso. The shorter that center back line is, the higher up it's going to be. So if you want to create a cropped t-shirt, you're obviously going to lessen up that center back. If you want to create more of an elongated look, you're going to increase that neckline, or you're going to increase that center back line. Typically with oversized garments, we typically tend to see a sort of slouch or a relaxed feel to the garments, and that typically ends up looking like a longer fit. Here, I'm going to be using a 27-inch center back for my athletic t-shirt, which is going to end up right around, I would say, just above the full part of the hip. And for my oversized t-shirt, I'm going to be ranging between 28 to 28.5. That extra 1.5 inches is going to make a difference in terms of where the garment hits. And again, it's going to give it that more slouch and oversized and relaxed fit. And that's the look that we're going for. Next up, we're going to work on our core width measurements. And one of the most important ones is going to be the chest half width measurement. The way that here, we're going to be measuring that width from armpit to armpit, obviously with the garment being laid flat on the floor or on a clear surface. We've done separate videos in the past that I highly recommend you check out, where I've taken you step by step through how to measure these garments, but just know that your chest half width is going to be a core and integral part of figuring out how the garment is going to fit on that chest portion. When it comes to my athletic t-shirt, my chest half width is going to be around 20 inches. That's on the half. Obviously on the full, that'll be 40 inches, but obviously when worn, it'll stretch out. When it comes to an oversized t-shirt, I'm going to be going for a wider fit, obviously. Think about this. Your chest half width is going to determine how the garment is going to sit on the chest. The lower that measurement is, the tighter on the chest. So if you want to create more of a relaxed fit, you're going to increase that measurement. If we're going for 20 inches, for a size medium, and bear attention guys that all of these measurements are for a size medium men's US sizing. If 20 inches is going to create a nice and fitted tapered look, we want to increase that measurement in order to get more of a relaxed fit. So I'm going for 20 inches on my athletic cut, and I'm going for 24 inches on the half width of my relaxed cut. That 4 inches is going to make a difference. It's going to add around 2 inches on each side. And again, it's going to create a bit more of a drape. And again, it's going to create more of that slouchy and relaxed look that we're going for with our oversized fit. And this wouldn't be a fitting tutorial if I didn't mention the waist half width. Here, we're going to be taking the waist half width pretty much on the horizontal line that is directly between your chest half width line and your bottom half width line. for an athletic t-shirt, we're going to be tapering in from the chest and then coming back out towards the bottom. Why do we do that? Well, anyone who works out knows that you almost have this upside down triangle shape that you're ultimately going for. And if you're working out consistently, you're eating well, you're going to be achieving that look. A wider chest, a much more narrow waist, and of course, your hip bones is going to flare out a little bit. If you're working your legs, you're going to have a wider hip. In order to accentuate that and to push that forward, we're going to taper in the waist. When it comes to our measurement on a size medium, we're going to taper in the waist to around 19 would be ideal. So if our chest half width is 20, we're going to be coming in 0.5 on each side and then back out to 20.5 on the bottom. When it comes to our oversized fit, we're not doing any tapering at all. We don't need to take in any of the fabric from the side. We're trying to create a box cut, or at least we're trying to create a trapezoidal cut. So our side seams are going to be straight. We don't need to actually actively remove any fabric. So if our chest half width is 24 and our bottom half width is 23, our waist half width, since it's directly in the middle, is going to be right in the middle of that. Take the difference between them, divide by 2, that's going to end up at 23.5. Next up, we're going to be measuring our bottom half width. The bottom half width is going to be taken from pretty much the very bottom of the hemline, from edge to edge, with the garment laid out flat and perfectly straight. For our athletic t-shirt, we're gonna end up with a bottom hemline, or a bottom half width of 20.5 inches. And you'll notice that this is 0.5 inches larger than our chest. This has a little bit to do with how we taper. Since we're extremely fitted on the chest, and this is going to be much more of a compression, like fitted look on the chest, we're going to taper down towards the waist and we're going to come out slightly towards the bottom. This is going to give the garment, or also it's going to give the wearer, a little bit more of that elongated look. It's going to make you look a bit more structured, a bit more masculine, and ultimately it's going to accentuate your physique. So we open up the bottom half width a little bit. When it comes to our oversized fit, this is where we flip the script a little bit. We mentioned that our chest half width on an oversized is 24 inches. Well, here we're going to be going for around 22.5 to 23. So we're actually coming in a little bit. Why is that? We already have a lot of width on our chest, especially when it comes to our oversized fit. There's no need to either come out straight or to taper out. What we want to do is either come into a box cut, which would make our bottom half width as 24, or we can slightly taper in 23. Why do we do that? Well, there's two key reasons. Depends on the fabric that we're using. We don't want to taper out too much, and we don't want to create too much of a box cut. If the fabric is too thick and it's too heavy, what you're going to end up with is a little bit too much of a structured look around the waist. So just by tapering it a little bit, you still get that beautiful streamlined and boxy cut without any of that discomfort on the waist. So now we've actually figured out how we're going to fit our garments on the chest, the waist, and the bottom. What other measurements do we need in order to really bring this garment around full circle? Well, we definitely need the collar, we need the shoulder, and we need the clearance on the armpit. Essentially, we need to create a beautiful sleeve. When it comes to an athletic t-shirt, we're gonna have our sleeve be much more fitted. Typically, your shoulder line is gonna stick to the top of your shoulder cap. It's going to be fitted, and that's really where you're going to get a lot of that physique accentuation that you want in a performance t-shirt. Versus an oversized t-shirt, again, which is, we're trying to go for more of a slouch and worn-in look. We're gonna wanna drop the armhole. We're gonna wanna increase the length of the sleeve, both the shoulder and the sleeve. So when we increase the length of the shoulder, we're gonna move our shoulder line from the top of the cap of the shoulder a little bit more down to the lower part of the deltoid. And then this is going to allow us to push our sleeve length more downwards and just create an overall fitted or relaxed and, let's just say, less fitted look. So we start off with our collar. Our collar half width is important. The way that our collar sits on our neckline is going to dictate how the garment is going to be structured and how the shoulder is going to drape off. Here on both oversized and relaxed fits, you can have a pretty fitted collar. You've seen those oversized t-shirts that have these thick rib knit fabrics. And again, it all depends on the style you're going for. Here we're gonna go for a semi-fitted crew neck look, but of course there are going to be some key changes. When it comes to our collar half width, we're going to measure from edge of stitch to edge of stitch. On an oversized t-shirt, we're going to end up with around a 8.25 collar half width. That's going to allow your garment to sit beautifully on the shoulders or on the neck, but without it being more of a scoop neck or a boat neck or any other type of neckline that wouldn't work well with an oversized t-shirt. I definitely would recommend a crew neck for both of these types of garments. When it comes to our fitted t-shirt, we're going to end up with a collar half width of around 7.75. So there's not much of a difference between them, but there is a difference nonetheless. Next up, we need to look at the collar front neckline drop. So this drop is going to dictate how far down the collar is going to go. Typically with our oversized fits, we're going to have a slightly larger front neckline drop. Again, it's less fitted and you're going to be using thicker trims. Usually the types of trims that you use to finish the collar on an oversized t-shirt, they tend to be thicker, they also tend to be wider in terms of trim width. Versus something that's more of a performance t-shirt, you would end up with a trim width of around 0.5 versus something of around 1 inch for the trim width on an oversized t-shirt. So when it comes to our front neckline drop on our performance t-shirt, we're gonna end up with 2.25, which is plenty. It's going to drop beautifully. It's not going to reveal too much of the neck, but at the same time, it's not going to choke up on your neck. Versus 2.5 to 2.75 on an oversized t-shirt, which is going to provide that clearance for a thicker neckline and a thicker trim to be used. And again, still create that fitted and sort of more structured and masculine look on the neckline. Now that we've actually figured out the collar condition, we need to figure out the shoulder. The shoulder is going to be a key way for us to indicate where our shoulder line is going to start so that we can begin to come down for the armhole opening. The armhole opening is going to link up with our chest half width, and ultimately this is where our pattern sleeves are going to be sewn onto the torso. It's a little bit complicated, but just bear with me. We need to figure out two things when it comes to our shoulder line. The length of the shoulder, which is measured away from the stitch line that we just measured from the previous section, and the drop or the slope of the shoulder. Obviously in bespoke tailoring, this shoulder slope will differ depending on the side, but when it comes to mass manufacturing, we're going to keep the shoulder slopes identical on both sides. Usually for a fitted set sleeve t-shirt, this shoulder slope or the distance that it drops down will be measured perpendicularly. It also has a little bit to do with the shoulder length. So these measurements, they sort of play into each other. For our performance t-shirt, we're going to end up with a shoulder length of 5 inches and a shoulder drop of around 1 inch to 1 inch and 1/8 of an inch, so 1.125 inches. This drop is not straight, but at the same time, it's not overly angled. It's going to create a nice structured angle that's going to trace the tops of your shoulders beautifully, and it's going to create a condition where the edge of the fabric or the edge of the pattern lines up beautifully with the top of your shoulder cap. If it's cut too high, it's going to pull the fabric out and you're going to end up with this weird puckering. And if it's cut too low, it's going to push on the front of the neckline, and ultimately it's not going to look right at all. It's going to actually push the neckline upwards. So you need to get the perfect shoulder slope. When it comes to the oversized t-shirt, this measurement is going to change both the shoulder drop and the shoulder length. Why? Well, it has a lot to do with the projection outwards of the shoulder line. When we come outwards with the shoulder line, we're actually dropping further in with our garment. So we have a shoulder line of 7 inches for an oversized drop shoulder t-shirt. So to compare and contrast, we have 5 inches on our set sleeve t-shirt, which is a much more fitted performance look, something like this, and 7 inches, which is an additional 2 inches on an oversized drop shoulder look. That's gonna push that shoulder line downwards, again, creating that slouch appearance, and it's also going to push that shoulder slope downwards. So whereas with our fitted t-shirt, we have a 1.125 shoulder downwards, with our oversized t-shirt, we have 2-inch drop. That 2-inch drop is going to take us, and it's going to hit right around the bottom of the shoulder cap. That's where we can insert the sleeve. Now that we've figured out the shoulder point, we know from where we need to drop down to figure out the armpit. Look at it this way, we're plotting our points and we're establishing the parameters for our designs. When it comes to our armpit line, this has to do with where our shoulder line is and the perpendicular armhole depth. This is also the clearance that you have with the amount of room you have in your sleeves. A more fitted garment is going to be cut higher up and more towards the armpit, and a more oversized t-shirt is going to be cut much lower and it's going to add a little bit more room to that armpit. So when it comes to our fitted set sleeve t-shirt, we're typically dealing with around 8.5 inches on the perpendicular armhole drop. Versus something like an oversized t-shirt, we're going to be ending up with around 10 inches on the perpendicular armhole drop when measured from the shoulder line. Notice that difference. That's going to create all the world, or it's going to create all of the additional room that you need when it comes to the fit on the chest. because we've also mentioned that the chest on an oversized t-shirt is 24 inches versus the 20 inches that's actually on the fitted garment. So by adding this extra perpendicular armhole depth, you're also adding to that overall fit on the chest, which is a key indicator and a key differentiator between a fitted garment and an oversized garment. And last but not least, in order to complete these two key fits is our sleeve length coupled with our cuff half width. The cuff half width is measured from edge of fabric to edge of fabric, and ultimately this is going to indicate the amount of space that's around the bicep. Also, how low it's cut will depend on the sleeve length. So these two items play in side by side into each other. With a fitted t-shirt, once we come off the shoulder line, we're going to drop our sleeve length to 6.5. That's gonna hit beautifully around the mid bicep. And we're gonna cut our cuff half width at 6.25. This is going to achieve two key things. If you notice a shirt like mine, it's a formal shirt, but it's been custom cut. I've cut the sleeve slightly shorter, at the same time I've cut the cuff slightly tighter. What that's going to do is it's going to hit right above the middle of my bicep, and it's going to create a nice fitted appearance that's going to accentuate the physique and again create that performance look that we're going for. Versus our oversized t-shirt. Here we're going to flip the script a little bit. We're going to increase the sleeve length and we're going to increase the cuff half width. So we're going to come lower on the arm, probably an inch or two above the elbow, and at the same time we're going to open up the bottom of the cuff half width. When it comes to our oversized t-shirt, we're dealing with a sleeve length of around 8 inches, right? Adding on to that 2 inches that we added onto the sleeve to begin with, here you can see there's almost a 4-inch difference in terms of the drop of our oversized t-shirt in terms of where it hits on the arm. And in order to do that, or in order to compensate for that, we'll also open up the cuff from 6.25, which is our performance t-shirt fit, to around 7 to 7.25 on the oversized t-shirt. Again, the lower you go, the more tapered in you'll become, but still, that opening is going to be wider than that of a performance t-shirt, so do bear that in mind. Guys, to recap quickly, we looked at the key points and measurements that we need to take into account when it comes to fitting our garments correctly. Based on our oversized t-shirt and our performance t-shirt, modulating the chest, the waist, and the bottom is a key way to actually change the width and the way that the garment drapes on the chest and overall on the torso. By being conscious about how the garment fits on the neck, we set ourselves up correctly to create a beautiful shoulder condition which can play into our chest and at the same time can play into how the garment drapes on the sleeves. Bear in mind, when it comes to your fits, you can't just make a single fit change and expect a garment to completely be revolutionized in terms of its fit. I'll give you guys an example. Let's just say I took my performance 7-sleeve t-shirt and all I changed was the chest, or all I changed was the waist. And I didn't change the collar and I didn't change the bicep. What you would end up with is, number one, it might not even work, right? If you have too wide of a chest, but your actual sleeve is too tightly cut, the difference in terms of the fabric distances that you're using is not going to allow you to put that together at all. It's going to create a condition called puckering, and in general, it's not going to be able to be sewn at all. So there's always a push and pull effect when it comes to creating these patterns and actually sewing them together. So do bear that in mind. Changing your fit is a holistic experience. You change the chest, the waist, the bottom, and then you drop the neckline, then you drop the armhole, then you increase the sleeve length. There's always a small baby step that's taken step by step to achieve the perfect fit. You use these as a guideline in terms of how to fit or how to think about your fits the next time you have an existing garment that you love and you want to take that fit and modify it a little bit. So know that, okay, I'm going to change this chest, I might also have to change the armhole. Well guys, that is it. That is a wrap on this episode. That's been the ultimate fitting tutorial for a men's t-shirt. We compared and contrasted the oversized fit and the performance fit. If you guys enjoyed this episode and you enjoyed this type of content, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. Let us know what garment types you want to see us cover next, and I may just consider doing it. Also, check the link in the description. I offer one-on-one consultation calls every single week with limited slots. So if you have questions of your own, and let's just say you have a similar scenario of your own where you have a garment and you want to know how to fit it, well, definitely check the link in the description. We can hop on a call one-on-one and I'll be happy to answer any and all questions you have. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. We put out great content twice a week and we'd love for you to be along for the ride. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.